Good morning to each of you, class. Before we start, uh, let us pray. Our Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for today that you have given us good weather and strength to our students so that you will learn today to acquire new knowledge about our lesson. And please, Lord, help us. In Jesus' name, pray. Amen. So thank you, class, that you have all present this day. Before I go to the topic for this day, let us have a glance or review for our previous lesson. Please, 5 students who wants to share their understanding about the previous lesson. Yes. Thank you very much. And then, thank you again. And also, thank you very much. So that's all. So as what you have recap to our previous lesson, is as what you say or discuss or share is about discovering literature for Afro-Asian and to describe and identify the significance and all of their characteristics. So thank you so much for your knowledge about that topic. So as we go beyond this learning, we can discover about literature. So today, before we tackle all about this day, about topic this day, I want to give you a discussion. Please listen to me, for it is need to you that you can understand about literature, the significance of it, and the importance about the literature. So please listen to me as I read our discussion, so that after this you can get the right answer for our some activities or quiz after this discussion. So literature, a body of written works. Then the name has traditionally been applied to those imaginative works of poetry and prose distinguished by intentions of their authors and the perceived aesthetic excellence of their execution. Excuse me. Some personal documents or autobiographies, diaries, and memoirs and letters are the rank among the world's greatest literature. Some examples of this, the biographical literature, were written with posterity and mind. Some others with no in mind. Others with no thought of their being read by anyone but the writer. Some are in the highly polished literary styles. Others coaches in a privately involved language, we understanding as literature because of their cogency insight, depth and scope. So many works of philosophy are classed as literature. The dialogues of Plato on 4th century BC. It is written with great narrative skill and finest prose. And then, an orator, the art of persuasion, with long considered a great literary, the orator of the American Indian. orator as the art of persuasion as the long considered as a famous, while in classical Greece, Polymnia was the muse sacred to poetry, and oratory in Rome's great orator Cicero was have a decisive influence on the development of English prose. So then in literary composition or critical theories in Western, in the early Egyptians or Sumerians had critical theories about the writing of literature. These have not survived from the time of classical Greece until the present day. However, Western criticism has been dominated by two opposing theories of the literary art, which might conveniently be called the expressive and constructive theories of composition. And the Greek philosopher and scholar Aristotle is the first great representative of the constructive school of thought. His Poetics, the surviving fragments of which is limited to the analytical or analysis of tragedy and epic or poetry. So, sometimes been dismissed as a receipt book for the writing of pot boilers. Certainly, Aristotle is primarily interested in the theoretical construction of tragedy, much as an architect might analyze the construction of a temple, but he is not exclusively objective and matter of fact. He does, however, regard the expressive elements in literature as an secondary importance, and the terms he uses to describe them have been open to interpretation and a matter of controversy ever since. In the first century, class, listen to this, Greek treatise on the sublime, or conventionally attributed to the 3rd century Longinus, deals with a question left unanswered by Aristotle. What makes great literature, according to him? Great. Its standards are almost entirely expressive, where Aristotle is analytical and states general principles, and Pseudo-Longinus is more specific and gives many quotations. Even so, his critical theories are confined largely to impressionistic generalities, more specific and gives many quotations. Even so, his critical theories are confined largely to um, impressionistic generalities. Thus, at the beginning of Western literary criticism, the controversy already exists. So, in Eastern, the critical theories of literature in Asian cultures, however, have been more varied. So, there is an immense amount of highly technical critical literature in India. Some works are receipt books, vast collections of tropes and stylistic devices. Others are philosophical and general in the best period of Indian literature. So, the broad and narrow conceptions of poetry is the East Asian literature. The tradition has raised and questioned of the broad and narrow definitions of poetry, a question familiar in the West from Edgar Allan Poe's advocacy of the short poem in his poetic principle. There are no long epic Edgar Allan Poe's advocacy of the short poem in his poetic principle. And also, class, that there are development for literature. Its development is relevant to the West because it spotlights the ever increasing emphasis which has been laid laid on intensity of communication, characteristics of Western poetry and of literature generally, as it was involved since the late 19th century in East Asia. All cultivated people were supposed to be able to write suitable occasional poetry. So, plus this is very uh, importance for your level as a high school student for grade 8 for discovering the Afro-Asian literature, all literary texts, so that you can understand the world around Afro-Asian or the whole Asia, the nature of Asian literary texts. So, in literary language, in some literatures, notably classical Chinese or Old Norse, Old Irish, the language employed is quite different from the spoken or used in ordinary writing. This marks off the reading of literature as a special experience in the Western tradition. It is only in comparatively modern times that literature has been written in the common speech of cultivated men. The Elizabethans did not talk like Shakespeare nor 18th century people in the stately prose of Samuel Johnson or Edward. Okay, class. Ambiguity. Other writers have sought to use language for its most suitable, uh, subtle and complex effects, and have other writers have sought to use language for its most subtle and complex effects, and have deliberately cultivated an ambiguity inherent in the multiple or shaded meanings of words. And the translation. Certainly, William Blake or Thomas Campion, when they were writing their simple lyrics, were unaware of the ambiguities. So, themes and their sources. In literature, themes and sources are important. By the time literature appears in the development of a culture, the society has already come to share a whole system of stereotypes and archetypes, the major symbols standing for the fundamental realities of the human condition, including the kind of symbolic realities that are enshrined in religion and myth. Literature may use such symbols directly, but all great works of literary art are, as it were, original and unique myths. The world's great classics evoke and organize the archetypes of universal human experience. This does not mean, however, that all literature is an endless repetition of a few myths and motives, endlessly retelling the first stories of civilized man, repeating the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh or Sophocles, Oedipus king, the subject matter of literature, first stories of civilized man. And then literature, however, is not solely concerned with the concrete objective or reality with individual, and literature is not solely concerned with the concrete, with the individual psychology or with subjective emotion. Some deal with abstract ideas or philosophical conceptions. So, lastly, for our discussion, let's listen to the class. Listen to this. Some types of literature like prosody, irony, or the drama is like lyric poetry. Drama has been an exceptionally suitable literary form, and the future developments of it about drama and how we write literature. So through poetry and some of the process about literature. So thank you for your attentively listening about our discussion. And after this class, I have prepared a poem. But before we go this, just answer in your note this question about what is literature, and analyze or interpret the values and themes and texts. I forget class. The question is, what is literature? And state your identified literary and cultural text based on your understanding of what I have discussed this morning or a while ago. And then the number 2, what is cultural text? Give an example of it and describe. So the next activity we have class is I give you a copy of a poem. As I read to this video, let's understand that this poetry is help you, this class understand as we read the poetry, that it is useful for our understanding about literature. Okay class, this is our literature writings or poetry. So let's understand the words by words and the content of this literature by literary works as poetry by David Diop, the Afro-Asian literature author. So Africa by David Diop. Africa, my Africa. Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas. Africa of whom my grandmother sings on the banks of the distant river. I have never known you, but your blood flows in my veins. Your beautiful black blood that irrigates the fields. The blood of your sweat and the sweat of your work, the work of your slavery. Africa, the work of your slavery, Africa, tell me, Africa, is this your back that is unbent, this back that never breaks under weight of humiliation, this back trembling with red scars, and the seeing no to the whip under the midday sun? But a grave voice answers me, impetus, child, the tree, young and strong, the tree over there, splendidly alone amidst white unfaded flowers. That is your Africa, springing up anew, springing up patiently and obstinately. So, as what you have understand this poetry class, I want you to group or by pair so that you can get the work successful. This is the guide question for you. Please analyze or interpret the values and themes of the text which inform and impact culture and society. So, but now in the past, both now and in the past. So, class analyze this text, these literary works as a poetry. So, as we analyze, we can understand about the theme and how it reflects our society both now and in the past. So I want to give you a 5 minutes work about this activity. All are done? Yes, thank you very much. So let us proceed to okay. All, time's up. Please, Jandrins and Aldo, pass the papers of your group. Okay, class, for our final activity for this day about the lesson, let us get again 1/4 sheet of 1/2 sheet of paper, and we have true or false quiz. Please listen, because I have read only once all questions, so that our time will be exact. So, first question, Aristotle gave a formula for dramatic structure that can be generalized to apply to most literature. It is true or false? Second question, the 19th century was the golden age of the novel. Third question, the content of literature is as limitless as the desire of human beings to communicate with one another. Is it true or false? Number 4, the thousands of years, perhaps hundreds of thousands since the human species first developed speech, have since built up the almost infinite system of relationships called language. Number 5, last question about true or false. Popular fiction and drama in westerns and detective stories, films and television serials or deal with the same great archetypal themes as folktales and ballads, though this is seldom due to direct influence. These are simply the limits within which the human mind works. Is it true or false? And in class, at the back page of your 1/2 sheet of paper, please justify this question based on your learning about our previous discussion this day. List the identified literary and cultural texts and literature we have discovered. You can get there the text there for our poem a while ago, or you can list the literary text I have discussed to you. And then in one whole sheet of paper, it is your assignment. Please copy of this. Write your analysis or interpretation of the literary and cultural text we have studied. So, how is literature as literary and cultural text affects in our daily lives? Copy for that assignment class. Write it in one whole sheet of paper. So, again, pass your papers for the front of your classmates. Okay, thank you very much, class. That's all our lesson for today. Thank you for all the learnings that we discover. Once again, see you tomorrow and God bless each one of us.